Welcome back and welcome to my December wrap up. Yes, it is January. How crazy is that? And December was a pretty good reading month. I knew that it would be split into kind of two parts. The first part, more physical books, and the second part, more ebooks, because I knew that the second part, basically the only reading that I would do would be on an aeroplane, so I'd just have my Kindle with me. So I'm going to start off with the ebooks that I read and then tell you about the physical books and the audiobooks that I did, because I did a few audiobooks on the plane and kind of throughout the month as well, because I was driving about a bit. I read 18 books this month, some of which are shorter than others, which you will see, but I was really pleased with that because I did better than I thought it was going to do. At the beginning of the month it wasn't looking so great. But hey, I will leave my December TBR linked up here in case you missed any of it. Some of my December TBR is going to be moved over to my January TBR. I'll have my January TBR up for you on Friday, so you can see which books are ported over, but you'll get big clues from this video anyway. So the first ebook that I read on my Kindle was The City of Second Chances, and I have already reviewed this on my blog, which is always linked in the description box below, so you can go there and see my thoughts on this one. This is a nice Christmassy read, and I am glad that I read it so close to Christmas as well, because it does make you feel nice and festive. Then I also read Wildflower Park Parts 1 and 2 on my Kindle. I read them pretty much back to back. I started reading one of them in the airport before getting on the plane, and then reviewed it whilst on the plane and read part 2 whilst on the plane as well. I do have part 3 ready to go as well, but I held back because part 3 isn't out till March. Part 1 was out in the UK on the 28th of December, and part 2 is out in February, part 3 is out in March, so I think I'm good for reading part 3 right now. I will put it on my January TBR though. So this is a serialised novel from Bella Osborne. Last year I read her, what's it called, Otacon Bay serialised thing, and I do love a serialised novel. If you've been following the channel for a while, you will know that I love a serialised novel. So these take about an hour and a half to read, these ones, so they're like an ideal little chunk of sitting down reading time. You know you're not going to have to get up, so that's really quite nice. Then on my Kindle I also managed to read a couple of 2019 releases. One is a January release and the other is a February release, so I kind of prioritise the earlier releases. I had a couple of March releases on my TBR as well, just in case I needed something else to read on my Kindle, but I didn't get to them, so they'll be on my January TBR. But I read the new Sophie Kinsella, I Owe You One. It felt quite different from other Sophie Kinsella novels. You kind of know what you're getting with a Sophie Kinsella novel, and this one felt really quite different. It is one of those books that you need to have read the end to kind of understand what's going on in the beginning and the middle. I would have found it hard to describe to you what it's about at the midpoint, but by the time I got to the end I kind of knew what it's about. I kind of don't want to say any more because I know that people will be excited for reading it when it comes out in February. But yeah, it didn't feel like a Sophie Kinsella novel, even by the time I got to the end. I enjoyed it, I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it, but her novels have a certain feeling, and I come to them knowing that I'm going to get that feeling, and I didn't get that feeling. I got a different feeling though, so it's fine. And then I read Louis and Louise, or Lewis and Louise, depending how we're pronouncing it, which is a completely different novel altogether. Julie Cohen, the author, has this amazing way of finding completely different ways to tell her story. So she could have told her story in just a linear chronological way, but she just finds a different way to tell her stories, and oh, I just love her for it. It's just so different and so refreshing. It kind of deals with alternate storylines, as if you have alternate universes of if a particular child had been born a boy or a girl, how that affected them and how that affected their world. And again, I don't want to say much more than that because I feel like I've already said too much. I've already said too much, but yeah, I mean, if you read her previous novel, it's written backwards, so we start at the end and work our way to the beginning, and so you don't find out the secrets until you get to the very end of the book. And this one was very like it as well, in that you kind of, she gives you little bits of information at a time because she wants you to keep reading. She's just amazing. And this book comes out in the UK on the 24th of January. Definitely pre-order it, get your hands on it, see if she's doing an event near you, go to it, she's awesome. Yeah, so there we have the ebooks that I read. I have a couple of physical books that I don't have with me because they were library reads. So the first two, I decided that I would include the picture books that I read at the library when I'm volunteering in my wrap-ups because they're still reading, and generally they're very, very good, so I definitely want to put them out there and recommend them to you. So first one was Hooray for Hat, which is by, let me check my notes here, which is by Brian Wan, and apparently there's Hooray for Books and Hooray for Friends as well. It was just wonderful. It was really good, and I'm definitely glad I read it, and it will definitely be going into my kind of picture book to pick up rotation. And then I read Dear Zoo by Rod Campbell, which was on the Guardian bestseller 100 books of the year list again this year. It's not a new book, but I had never read it, and so I'm glad I have now read it because it was a very good read. Then we have a couple of other picture books which I have videos for, so I will leave them linked up here, because you will have seen that I read A Guinea Pig Oliver Twist with a guinea pig, and also A Guinea Pig Christmas Carol with a guinea pig. If you haven't already watched those videos, these are your bedtime stories for tonight. Like I say, I will leave them linked up here because I read them with guinea pig Button, and she really enjoys them, so I'm sure that you will enjoy them too. But they are just the cutest books. I've done A Guinea Pig Pride and Prejudice, I've done A Guinea Pig Nativity, and A Guinea Pig Romeo and Juliet. And then I had to do these as part of my Vlogmas this Christmas because they're so cute. Then one of my rereads and buddy reads this month was Fairy Tale of New York by Miranda Dickinson. She was hosting a special anniversary reread of her first novel, which is still one of my favourite books of all time. I have reread it before, so this was the third time reading it for me, and I loved reading it. I love being back in that world, and I immediately now want to go ahead and read, where is it? I'll Take New York. It's just out of sight up here, which is the sort of sequel to this one, because I'm like, oh, I need more of these characters, I need more of this world. The buddy reading side of it didn't work out so well, but I read basically like a chunk before my trip, and then I finished off when I came back, which was nice. The first book I read, which was also a buddy read and did work out as a more successful buddy read, was 9 Perfect Strangers by Liane Moriarty. I do have a review of this one on my blog already as well, and this was my Book of the Month Club pick for November. This one, if you liked Big Little Lies, this is not the same, but it has the same feeling. It has that same slow release of information. I would say it's a domestic thriller, but it's not a scary thriller type of thriller. There were parts that I was like, what on earth is going to happen next? But there were other parts where I was like, oh, this is just a nice story set in a spa. I really did enjoy it. My favourite of her books is Big Little Lies. As you know, I hated the TV show, but this isn't as thrillery as Big Little Lies, but it's still a thriller, definitely a domestic thriller, and I enjoyed reading it. Then I have their Christmasaurus musical edition by Tom Fletcher, which I got last year after Christmas, ready to read this year for Christmas. I read it in one sitting. It was very lovely. The music goes really well with it, and if you want to see a snippet of the music and the pictures and the text, you can watch my reading vlog, which I will leave up here, which I did for the first 2 weeks of December. I vlogged my reading and what I was reading and how I was reading and when I was reading, and this is included in it with the music, and it's very shiny and very beautiful, and the pictures are just, Yes, I haven't read The Creakers by Tom Fletcher, but I think there's a musical edition of that coming out, so gonna get on that definitely. Then on to the audiobooks that I listened to. On the most part, I do have physical copies of these. The first one was The Seven Torments of Amy and Craig, a love story, and this is set in 1994, although it goes into 1995 as well. And this was sent to me by my friend Jenna, who I buddy read Nine Perfect Strangers with because she thought I would like it. I didn't really like it. I thought it was a bit boring. I'm not really sure what was going on with it. I can see why she thought I would like it, definitely. There's, you know, nothing on her in this. But yeah, it wasn't an amazing read. I wouldn't recommend it to you. Then I finally got round to reading Pride by E.B. Zaboy. This one had been on my TBR a couple of times. People had told me the audiobook was great, and the audiobook was great. It's read by Elizabeth Acevedo, who wrote The Poet X, and ironically I listened to that on a plane as well, and I listened to the entirety of this one on a plane. And it's a retelling of Pride and Prejudice set in Brooklyn, and that's about all you need to know. It's wonderful, it was really entertaining, and I really enjoyed it. It's one of those that lives up to the hype. And then another reread for me, I did 2 rereads this month. Another reread for me was Dumpling. I made a whole book versus movie about this one because this is why I was rereading it, ready for when the movie came out on Netflix on the 5th of December. I will leave it linked up here or linked down below if I've run out of links up here. But yes, that is why I was rereading this one. And then a few audiobooks, well, a couple of audiobooks I have that I only had as audiobooks. I don't have the physical book of. I read If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin, which I feel like I started in November, but it probably just feels like it was so long ago because it was pre-trip back to the UK. And I read this one because the movie has been nominated for quite a few Golden Globes. It's probably going to get some Oscar nominations as well, and so I wanted to read the book before I saw the movie. I'm hoping to see the movie at this week at some point, so that I can film a book versus movie for you, and also so that I can have seen it before the Golden Globes, because I would like to have seen it before I can kind of, you know, make my call on what I think is going to happen at the Golden Globes, which if you would like to see a video on that, let me know in the comments, definitely. Then I also listened to, on the plane, My Squirrel Days by Ellie Kemper, which is her memoir, autobiography. It's definitely more of a memoir than an autobiography. It was really entertaining. I learned lots of new things about her. I learned about her kind of pre-acting life and how she sort of got into acting as well, and did hear some of the stuff from when she was on The Office and some of the stuff from when she was on Kimmy Schmidt. So that was really interesting and definitely entertaining for a 10-hour flight. And then I got my hold through, like literally the day before getting on the plane, I think, and listened to this on the plane as well. I Might Regret This, Essays, Drawings, Vulnerabilities and Other Stuff by Abby Jacobson. I am a massive Broad City fan. I was slightly late to the game with Broad City, so I was able to binge watch seasons 1 and 2, which was awesome. And then when I was at BookCon, Abby Jacobson was in the line at Starbucks behind me, and I didn't say anything to her. And having read the book as well now, I'm like, why didn't I just chat to her? Yeah. Again, this is definitely more of a memoir. It talks about a road trip that she took between, I can't remember if it's either Pennsylvania or New York and LA, but yeah, she kind of decided to go on this solo road trip, and so we hear snippets of details from that, but then also things from her life, and again how she got to be where she is, and her comedy background, and whether she thinks of herself as an actress or a writer. And yeah, it was just really entertaining as well. If you can do it on audio, obviously it's read by the author. I love it when it's read by the author and it's a memoir. I feel like they're just chatting to me. So yeah, definitely recommend that one. So there we have my December wrap up. You can see there's a few things from my December TBR missing, but I got some holds on some other audiobooks over the month, and so I kind of jumped into those before they had to be returned. And yeah, I didn't apart from the one that I found a little bit boring and the slight buddy read fail because I wasn't reading at the same pace, it was a really good reading month and I really enjoyed it. So please let me know in the comments what you read in December, if you read any of the same books as me, or if your books were slightly more festive than my reading. I had 2 festive reads in there, and Fairy Tale's quite festive as well. As I say, it was my 3rd reread of that one, so I love it. I love it. I will have my January TBR up for you on Friday, so make sure you're subscribed so that lands right in your subscription feed. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and I will see you on Friday. Bye.